Couple of days ago, I heard about a brand new TCG called Drakerion on YouTube. The art style was at least for my taste, so I've decided to take a bit closer look. The game is currently on Kickstarter. Before you'd say it's just another TCG, I personally think this game has several pieces that are unique and interesting, especially if you are someone who likes competitive, strategic TCG with less lag element. If you're looking more casual TCG for higher variance and simple rule, the game may not be for you. Since my personal preference is the former, like Magic or Flesh and Blood, I've decided to take a bit closer look on this. This is a brand new physical TCG being developed by French developer Lore Master Game. The development team consists of a long-time TCG players. The lead designer is a Game of Thrones LCG Vice World and National Champion. The game is designed for organized play in mind and planning 3 times a year expansion. As a norm for Kickstarter TCG project, you will receive the earliest edition of cards along with exclusive alternative art promo if you were to back this project. With straightforward rules, a dynamic game system, and focus on interaction, player skill is what determines who wins the Drakerion, according to Kickstarter page. This is a troop versus troop type game. A goal of the game is to destroy all of the opponent's characters on the board, or enough of them. The latter is defined based on the fact that the certain characters on the board having prestige value. Destroying these characters gain you those prestige, and once you gain 20 or more prestige, you win the game. A starter deck is estimated to be $18 and a booster box consisting of 20 packs and 10 cards per pack is $100. At the time of this recording, the Kickstarter has just recently launched and goes until May 28th. They have almost 240 backers and raised almost $90,000 in the first 72 hours. Now let's take a bit closer look at the game in a systematic way. Whenever I review or look at the brand new TCG, I usually look following elements on the game first. They usually tell me if the game is something that I might like or not. Uniqueness or innovation, art and lore, price, resource system, card types, dynamic interactive play support, game variance, and balance. Given so many strategy card games have existed to this point, I highly doubt anyone can make a groundbreaking game system at this point. So in this category, I am looking at things that are less familiar to me. For Drakerion, these are prestige mechanics, 2-lane system, and simultaneous turn play. One of the ways to win this game is to wipe opponent's character on the board. So right off the bat, we know the game is permanent, cards that are stayed on the board based games. This objective infers 2 opposite spectrum of strategy potential in the game. One is many low-cost characters to keep board presence. The other is few in number but beefy characters that are harder to destroy. I believe prestige system adds a depth to this, especially from designer's perspective. As an alternative win condition, player can accrue 20 or more prestige points. One of the main way to get prestige is to destroy characters that has prestige value. So in general, stronger character gets prestige, and it is a risk factor for the controller to think of when they are casting those characters. Also, based on the way rulebook phrase prestige, we know there are other ways to get prestige. So the game basically has created alternative win condition rule as a built-in core design. I personally like this far better than the deck out condition that we see often in other games as an alternative win condition. This simply has much more potential and thematically far more fitting. Drakerion uses two-lane system. Unlike a grid-based system, this does not limit number of cards you can play on the board. Instead, this system provides another dimension in the game. Characters in support line are harder to be targeted by opponent's attack, so designers can create lower health characters with ranged attack and/or supportive abilities. Perhaps one of the most standing out feature about this game is what I call simultaneous turn system. In Drakerion, both players take a turn at the same time. Each player takes an action and the other player gets the priority. This makes every deck interactive. I will talk about this in Dynamic Interactive Play support section a bit more detail. The game's world setting is a dark fantasy. There are dwarves, elves, skeletons. I haven't seen dragons, but I'm sure there will be dragons. Art preference is highly subjective. However, independent of what one's art preference is, I think most would agree they look gorgeous. I personally like these computer graphics type art style. Looking at currently available starter deck and card list, I see there are some variance in the style and quality of arts, but developers have stated arts are not final. So perhaps some of these may be upgraded to match with others. Even if they were final, I think they are still acceptable quality to me and certainly already seem to match art quality of other major brand TCGs. Here I'm not looking at Kickstarter potential value itself as a means of investment or secondary market. Instead, I am looking at relative cost of the game if I were to continue purchasing the game whenever a new expansion comes out and compare it to the other TCGs on the market. This is an important factor as this game is a plan to have organized play and receive periodic expansions. First, the game does not mention non-rotating cards, so I think it is safe to assume if the game continues, there will be a rotation of cards. So unlike Flesh and Blood TCG, cards you purchased could lose play value, but that's a distant future for now. Comparing price amongst TCGs is a bit challenging as there are many variables exist such as promo cards, foil, pull rate, set release frequency, set rotation, and perhaps, most importantly, availability of single card market. So one of the easier price matrix I personally like to use is to compare the price of completing basic, non-foil, non-alternative art play set for each set and expansion, assuming you open these in a booster packs. This is usually a max cost for someone who wants to make any deck using any cards from the set. For Drakerion, this can be calculated as sum of all 5 starter decks and cost of 100 booster packs. You need all 5 starter decks because you can only pull a foil version of starter deck cards from the booster, and there is only one foil per booster pack. You need 100 booster packs because the highest rarity card in a booster pack, which is rare in this game, has 25 different cards in the first set, and you can only get one rare per booster pack. Since the playset in this game is 4, you need to open 100 booster packs. Each pack costs about $5. So the total estimated price is about $575. In fact, I think $556 Ruby tier gets you the number needed. In reality, if there is a single card market, you should be able to get the playset for cheaper. I like the fact that they did not create ultra rare cards such as Mythic Rare in Magic, Legendary Fabled in Flesh and Blood. To put the number in perspective, Magic the Gathering complete basic playset usually costs $600 to $800 using Magic the Gathering online redemption program. Flesh and Blood TCG complete playset costs similar range based on my personal experience. Drakerion developer states, it will be more accessible than the current card games on the market if you would like to get a full playset of the game, excluding promotional and exclusive cards. The developer has also stated the first set has more cards than the usual, so future set price could be cheaper. Thus overall, I think Drakerion TCG should be cheaper to complete a playset than the other popular TCG games. Now, let's talk about actual game mechanics. I really like to think and look card games design, amongst which Resource System is a strategy card game defining element. I personally classify Resource System into 4 main categories: non-resource, automatic, sacrifice, and dedicated card-based resource systems. Usually this is a specific order of card games' overall designs, increasing flexibility and complexity. Since I like more complex, more future design space potential TCG, my personal preference is dedicated card-based resource system. Magic the Gathering is the most famous TCG using this. The main drawback for dedicated card-based resource system is mana or resource screw, where lack factor prevents from a player from playing anything for multiple turns in a row. This isn't a fun for neither player, as we are not really playing any game at this point. Therefore, it is a requirement for any new TCG that uses card-based resource system to have some type of solution for resource screw. In case of Drakerion, who uses card resource system, their solution is to use separate deck for resource cards. This is one of the most commonly accepted solutions we've seen in other games. Having said that, Drakerion's resource system have some interesting elements. 1. Player can choose which resource card to use from the resource card pile. 2. Resource card have built-in number of card draws, which are usually more than 1. Resource points carry over. One of the main benefits of card-based resource system over the other resource system is that resource can have their own abilities and game mechanics, so they are design space for developers. It is not uncommon to see game starts with basic resource cards for the first few sets, and later release an expansion focusing on resource game system mechanics. However, all Drakerion's resource cards, called maneuvers, have real abilities, and they are actually important. The elegance of Drakerion's resource system is depicted by cards that have resource disruption abilities. Given resources are fundamental of playing cards, taking any action during own turn in multiple TCGs, normally disrupting opponent resource is thought of as a too strong or reducing fun factor of the game, and therefore it is often seen as a risky game design space. However, Drakerion's maneuver cards change each turn, and it is under player's control which one to play, along with several other game design factors, such as multiple cards draw per turn potential, gold resource point carryover to the next turn. The resource disruption in this game looks to be a part of skill-based tactics, rather than irrefutable mechanics. Besides the maneuver cards, Drakerion has interesting separate resource systems. There are cards that require tapping a banner or city cards. These cards start in play from beginning of the game. So one can look these cards as own once per turn resource system. Basically, Drakerion has built-in multiple resource systems, including number of draw cards, cumulative gold, once per turn city and banner resources. I can see this could be one of the best resource system implementation in TCG. In general, more card types the game has, more complex the game becomes. I consider this is like a modular system of computers, gadgets, or perhaps gaming table. More parts that can be swapped, more customization one can do. In case of TCG, more design space developer have, and more unique feel player can get as game grows. Drakerion has 6+1 card types: character, event, attachment, banner, city, maneuver, and sound of the retreat. Drakerion is a game of destroying opponents' characters, so this is the main card type. Characters have permanent board presence with health points, attack values, so they are analogous to creatures or allies in other games. The interesting element is some could have ranged attack to utilize the 2-lane system. Also, prestige stat to add another layer of card cost equivalent beyond simple summoning cost. Event cards are one-time play cards like sorcery in Magic or action in Flesh and Blood. Attachments buffs or debuffs characters, so they are like equipment and the aura in other games. Maneuver is resource card in this game. Banner card starts in play and defines a deck's faction or color. This determines what cards can be included in your deck. Additionally, banner specifies sets of characters that start game in play. City card also starts in play and has its own effect and abilities. As mentioned previously, banner and city cards can act like an own resource system. Sound of the Retreat feels a bit mysterious card type to me. Currently, there is only one card, and it is simply a means to acquire first player priority following turn. It is interesting why they made this into an actual card and occupy board space rather than just a basic rule or perhaps as a token. So I'm not sure if this can be counted as a real card type, but perhaps the designers have some plan in the future to expand this as a design space. Another important element of TCG for me is whether we can play during opponent's turn or not. I call this dynamic interactive play support. In games like Magic the Gathering or Flesh and Blood TCG, this is represented by instant card or ability. These special cards or abilities are only ones a player can play during opponent's turn. The benefit for dynamic interactive play support is you can or can be surprised. The downside of this system is it makes the game much more complex. One of the main aspects of the game new Magic player gets confused is indeed related to this. So there are TCGs intentionally not supporting dynamic interactive play to keep the game system more simple. In fact, some may even see this as a source of playing with a rule rather than playing with a card. Drakerion game supports dynamic interactive play by fundamental game design, and I think this may be the most unique feature of the game. In this game, each player alternates play during a shared turn. So independent of what deck type one plays, every player will feel interactive nature of the game in Drakerion. When a combat is taking place between characters, you can play cards or abilities with combat keyword. These cards act like reaction cards in Flesh and Blood or combat tricks in other games. Variance in TCG has two primary components. Variance in playstyle, like aggro deck versus control deck. Variance during a game due to luck factor. So even playing with the same deck results in different gameplay. Playstyle variance is one main reason why players enjoy TCG genre. If there is a potential area of concern I have with this game at this moment, is this aspect. Drakerion is faction-based game. This means there is a card pool restriction when making a deck. While restricting card pool allows the designers to push the limit of each card design and worry less about unintentional degenerative combo that breaks a game balance. I've seen many games restricting card pool ended up failing to expand each card pool enough. As a result, choice of faction became choice of playstyle and took away actual variance. I hope developers will show some of playstyle variance in the game as Kickstarter campaign updates, and perhaps touch on their future plans, how they will expand on it. On the contrary, as the TCG gets more competitively oriented, players start to favor games with less lag factor based variance. Drakerion is designed to be played competitively, and developers have explicitly stated they value skill over the luck. This is indeed demonstrated in games design at various levels. For example, in many games, whoever goes first, or perhaps second, gets significant advantage. Yet this is often decided based on the dice roll, basically pure luck. Drakerion approaches this issue quite interestingly. A banner card that starts with a game in play has initiative value. This value is compared against opponents, and this determines who goes first during the first turn. Subsequently, one will use Sound of Retreat mechanics to gain first play during the next turn. So the play order in this game can be strategically and tactically controlled. Another example is City Card's default ability. You can tap it to cycle a card in your hand to fix a bad hand. Drakerion shows decreasing luck element even at the mulligan level. In Drakerion, you get to choose which card to replace. But not only that, you are guaranteed to not redraw the exact copy of replacing cards. Choosing which resource card to play each turn, rather than drawing one at random, is another way of eliminating a luck element. Another example is the way Drakerion dealing with unusable card in hand. In Drakerion, there are special characters called named characters. You are not allowed to play more than one instance of the same named character. This makes sense thematically. However, if this were the only rule, then drawing multiple copies of the same named character in a given hand at once would be a bad hand. Drakerion developers recognized this and created a special rule so you can discard the card and use it to buff the specific named character. These are just some examples I saw developers implemented to reduce lag factors in this game. Each pieces may be relatively small, but combining all together, I'm sure you'll feel the game is much less luck driven than many other TCGs in existence. One of the hardest part of TCG design must be the balancing of cards and decks. I consider a balancing in a TCG have two levels. One is at the level of individual cards, and the other is at the level of decks. The king of TCG, the Magic the Gathering, still gets errata and card bans. This simply tells me it is just not possible to eradicate unbalanced card introduction as the game's card pool expands. However, players seems to be less tolerable when the game is imbalanced at the level of decks, especially when the game is designed to be played competitively. This means one or two types of specific deck dominates entire competitive meta environment. New TCG, when claimed to be designed for organized play in mind, are always assessed by potential players for the game's balance. No matter how innovative or interesting the game design or mechanics are, if the game is unbalanced and just having one card or one deck guarantees a win, the game will fail beyond the kitchen table. So this is extremely important, but also hardest component of TCG to assess. This is only to be seen. At the time of this recording, the Kickstarter has under $90,000 pledge and under 250 backers. Although current Kickstarter numbers may not be too shabby for non-US based indie company's first project, some may see it as underwhelming. I believe this is not reflection of the product quality, but rather lack of advertisement by the developers. Overall, my first impression about this game is that I would not be surprised if this becomes the next Flesh and Blood TCG. Having said that, developer needs to put a bit more effort in advertisement if their plan is to have the game grow to a wider audience. As a potential player, be sure to go check out the Kickstarter page, play some games on the tabletop simulator, or using print and play starter kit.